Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Hello, welcome back. Shalom Aleichem. Today's daf is CHULLIN daf Kuf Mem. We begin on the second line off the top, Tashma, back to our discussion of yesterday. The pasuk says, Ki korei kan tzipor lefanecha, if you encounter a bird nest. Tzipor, says the Gemara, is specifically a kosher type. On that, says the Gemara, have a kasha. Tashma, kol tzipor Torah. Pasuk in Devarim teaches us only to eat a kosher bird called tzipor Torah toichelu. Now, the word tzipor on its own, by definition, is limited to the kosher type. Why need to add Torah? Called tzipor Torah. Tzipor in itself means Torah. Tashma called tzipor Torah. Doesn't that tell you, Machlal, apparently, that the term tzipor, the ikot tmeya, covers both types, kosher and non-kosher, as opposed to what you were saying yesterday. No, Machlal, the ikot asura. The term tzipor is specific to kosher. The reason why the Torah added tzipor Torah, to exclude a kosher bird which happens to be forbidden for a different reason. And that is forbidden for consumption. Mai. For example, what do you mean when you say it is asur itreifa? If it's internally wounded, it's kosher, but it's asur. Bad yuksiv. Well, that's already been covered in a different pasuk. Pasuk in Vayikra, which says, do not eat a kosher bird which happens to be a treifa. There's no need to repeat that here. Perhaps we're speaking about a kosher bird which is forbidden for a different reason. It was part of the Metzora purification process, where he brings two birds. One bird he dips into the water and sends it off to fly away. The other one he shechts. So if it's this one that the Metzora shechted, and the pasuk is telling us, even though it's a kosher bird, even though it experienced proper shechita, you cannot eat it. If that's the point of the pasuk, v'bishut the Metzora, that's unnecessary to discuss over here. We say for the Kornafka, that's been covered in the next pasuk, where it says, from those kosher that were shechted, you still cannot eat all. Which one, for instance, the one that the Metzora shechted, which is off limits. So back to the first pasuk, called tzipor Torah, you may eat a tzipor which is Torah. What's the point of adding the word Torah if tzipor on its own, by definition, means Torah? Back to the Metzora bird, we're coming to exclude that. Only a properly shechted kosher bird which is permitted, as opposed to the one that the Metzora shechted. And as per your question, there's just a repetition because it's covered already in the next. Yeah, sometimes the Torah tacks on another isser on the same item. V'laver olav, in order to transgress upon it, ba'asei, uveloisasei. So the next pasuk, which says, Loi toichel, it's a loisa, do not eat the Metzora bird that had been shechted. And the first pasuk, do eat tzipor Torah, as opposed to that one, it's called an asei, which implies do not eat the other one. Okay, once we've discovered this double-layered isser concept, we're looking at treifas, then for the same money we can say that the first pasuk, called tzipor Torah toichelu, is coming to exclude a kosher bird that happens to be a treifa, and to add another isser onto that as well. V'laver olav b'asei v'loisasei, to add an asei over the loisasei that we already know. Who says it's going on the Metzora bird that had been shechted? Maybe on the treifa bird. That doesn't really have much benefit from the shechita, because in any case, the shechita never permits a treifa bird for consumption. Says the more, the reason why we prefer the Metzora bird, davar alamed b'inyanai, that's a rule that we apply something contextually, right? We compare it to its surrounding topic. U'v'inyanai d'shchuta ksiv, the pasuk, v'zeh shaloi toichlo mehem, the next pasuk is referring to mehem, those discussed earlier which had been shechted. So amongst those properly shechted ones, we have one which is off limits. That's the Metzora one that had a proper shechita. It's still asur. As opposed to a treifa, which is not part of our discussion. Therefore, we prefer applying the first pasuk to a Mitzvah bird as well, to give us a double layered Isser. Okay, in any case, we thought we had a question from the fact that it says Tzipor Tahira, perhaps indicates that the term Tzipor covers kosher or non-kosher, which necessitated the extra word Tahira to say no, kosher. Well, no, actually, Tzipor by itself is only kosher, the kosher type of bird. The point of Tahira is to exclude the Shechted Mitzvah bird. Tashma, comes another Akasha, a raya, seeming proof that the term Tzipor covers both types. Tashma, Shtei Tziparim Chayos. Okay, so we're over to the Mitzvah. He brings two birds, Chayos. What's meant? What's Chayos? My Chayos. Lav Shechayos Beficha. We're assuming it means permitted for consumption. It's appropriate for your consumption. Okay? The fact that you have to add that descriptive term indicates apparently the term Tziparim on its own covers edible and inedible, kosher and non-kosher. No, my chayos. Of course, Tzipor is strictly edible, strictly kosher. What then is the term chayos coming to teach? My chayos, shechayin rosh yivarim shalahen, means that it's healthy, that it's uninjured. That's not a treifa. It has its rosh yivarim, its limbs, right? It's as opposed to a treifa bird. Tashma miseifa. Let's move on to the next part of that pasuk, right? Bring the two birds, chayos, and then we have the word tahiros. Oh, very similar to the previous raya. Machal dikatreis. Apparently, the term tziparim on its own is not limited to kosher. Otherwise, why would the Torah have to go out of its way and say it has to be tahiros? Well, obviously, tziparim and tahiros are synonymous. Loi machal dikatreis. You're right. Tziparim is limited to tahira, and the pasuk by saying the word tahiros is coming to exclude a treifa bird. Treifis mechayos nafka. Hold it. That's already been covered by the word chayos. It has to sustain. It has to be an enduring bird, as opposed to a treifa which dies away, right? Which is in a weakened state, which will not have longevity. Mechayos nafka. Well, if you take on the position of the shita that even a treifa, animal or bird, can live a long time, so then it's not going to be excluded by the term chayos, because this also can live. And that's why it requires the extra word tahiros to cover the to exclude the treif. But if you hold that a treif doesn't really have longevity, so perhaps the word chayos is coming to exclude a treifa. Michael and Maimar. So then the word tahiros is extra. Okay, and then back to the question. What's the point of saying tahiros? To tell you kosher? Tziparim on its own, according to you, means kosher. Void furthermore. Whether you take on the approach that treifa that has longevity or not, we still do not need a pasuk here to exclude the treifa. It's unnecessary. We already know it from a different source. Nemar, we find in the Beis HaMikdash two classes of karbanos. Machshir. Some karbanos are considered a machshir, enablers, like the asham of a mitzvah, which helps in his purification process and enables him to go eat karbanos. It opens the door back into society. Umachaper, we have karbanos which are meant for atonement. Achatas, right? V'nemar, so we find that bifnim. V'nemar, likewise, we find a similar dual, system outside. Outside meaning outside the Beis HaMikdash. You have the birds of the mitzvah, which is a machshir. It's coming to enable him, to purify him. And we have a mechaper, sor hamishtalech and kippur, throw down the cliff, which is mechaper and averis. So we find both categories. So we match up the two pairs, the inner one to the outer one, or the outer one to the inner one. We make this comparative equation. Just like in the Beis HaMikdash, this dual arrangement, machshir and mechaper, are very similar to each other. We don't find much difference between the two. The same rules that apply to a mechaper, it cannot be blemished, etc., applies to the machshir animal. We assume likewise regarding this set outside the Beis HaMikdash as well. Af machshir u'mechaper, likewise the machshir and mechaper that's discussed outside are on similar planes. Also by machshir mechaper, regarding all the requirements and conditions. So just like the mechaper has to be a proper carbon, right? The Sar Azazel has to be just like the Sar Lashem, has to be the same. They're an equal pair. They're an equal, match. So the same requirements that apply to the mechaper apply to the machshir as well. I.e., the birds of a mitzvah cannot be treifa. Okay, so that's old news. So back to our pasuk. Shtei tziparim chayos tahiros. There's no point in excluding a treifa, which is already known from the other source. Elam Rav Nachman Yitzchak. I'll tell you what the pasuk here is excluding. The word tahiros is coming to exclude a different type of bird which the Torah renders unsuitable for mitzvah purposes, as follows. The mitzvah cannot use the birds from a condemned city who worshipped an idol. You can't use them. That's what the pasuk is coming to exclude. Says the Gemara. Now, the mitzvah, as we mentioned, had two birds. One which he shechts, and one which he sends off, right? Lamai, which one do you want to apply it to? Ilishluach, the one that you're sending out. That's unlikely, because the bird from the Ir HaNidachas is off limits, it's forbidden, you can't benefit from it. So now you're going to take it and send it off, somebody out there will catch and mistakenly use it? Well, it's unlikely. The Torah would say, send something away which can cause somebody pitfall. Rather, he's going to try to use it for the one that you shecht. Comes the Torah and says, no, you can't use it. Rava Amar, another application to this word tahiros. Suppose we have one mitzvah in the Mikdash, then comes along another mitzvah, and he says, you know what, I want to piggyback on the first one. I want to use his leftovers. I want to take his bird that he already uses for his process, and you apply it for mine as well. A used bird. So he's going to take the second bird of the first mitzvah, not the one that he shechted, the one that he's about to send. I say, hey, hold it. Could I use it? Says the Gemara that you can't do. Lamai, again, what does he want to apply it for? For his shechted one or for a send away one? Ilashchitas, you want to shecht it? Habay shiluch has to be sent away because of the first mitzvah. El shiluch, rather, he wants to send it away as well. He wants to reuse that same bird. Comes the Torah and says you can't. Rav Papa Amar. I'll tell you what Tahir is coming to exclude. Let's apparem shechlifu baved zara. Okay, suppose he bought a nice house. He found a nice idol, which of course is usher for us to use. He knocks on his next door neighbor's door. He says, "Oh, Mr. Guy, I have a nice idol. Could I get a flip? I'll give you a beautiful deal. Give me some birds." So those birds that were taken in exchange for the zara cannot be used for mitzvah. Shechlifu baved zara. The chsiv, as the pasuk says, "V'hayisa cherem kamayu," regarding baved zara, and v'hayisa tells you anything which is derived, even by way of exchange. Baved zara is usher, is off limits. Kol shatamahaya, whatever you procure through the Avodah Zarah Kamayu has the same status as the original Avodah Zarah and is off limits. Now again, what are you trying to use it for? For which bird? For the shechted bird of the mitzvah or the send away bird? Lamai ila shiluach, want to send it away? That's inconceivable. Torah would not tell you, send away a bird which is off limits, which can cause somebody out there a pitfall. El shchita, rather, he's trying to use it as his first bird for shchita. I would think that's okay until the Torah banned it. Ravina Amar, here comes a fourth shot. You know what Tahiris is coming to exclude? Which bird is unsuitable for the mitzvah? Hachab ma'skinan, ba'ev sharix nefesh. Very similar to Ravina yesterday. We were talking about a bird that killed somebody. Sharix nefesh. And Torah is saying it's unsuitable. Hey Chidami, now at which point, at which stage of the process are we talking here? Idagam Ardina, if its verdict had already been issued and he's already condemned for death, then he's not a candidate anyway. Barakatolo is meant to be killed. The Bezdin has him already, and there's no option of using him for the mitzvah. Prior to the issuing of the verdict, I would think he can use it until the Torah forbids it. Ulamai, now, what does he want to apply it for? The first bird, the shechted one, or the second one? the send away one. They're trying to send it away. That's not really doable because you can't just send it off to the wild. You have to bring it to the best. But you made to fulfill to eradicate evil from amongst you. So that's not really an option. Rather, he's trying to shecht it as part of his process. Torah says, this thing cannot be used. Okay, so at the end of the day, we haven't really concluded. We thought we had a bunch of kashas on the shita, which explains that tzipor, by definition, means a kosher type. We had a bunch of kashas, which were answered. In terms of the pasuk, shtei tziparim b'chayis tahiris v'adam mitzvah, we had several ways to apply it, to exclude this bird, that bird, the zara bird, etc. Okay, now back to the Mishnah. Oif tamei roivetz al beitzu of tar. Mishnah says that if it's a non-kosher bird resting on kosher eggs, or vice versa, patur l'shalech, there's no shluch hakim. Why? Says the Gemara, Bishlam if tamei. I understand if the mother bird is a non-kosher type. Roivetz, who is nesting on al beitzei tar, on the kosher types, but in a tzipor v'leka. Right? It's not a candidate for shluch hakim because the mother bird is not a tzipor. It's not kosher. Ella, but in the reverse scenario, oif tahir roivetz al beitzei if tamei. You have the kosher mother sitting on the non-kosher eggs. What's wrong? Hatzipor. The mother bird is a tzipor. Why not do shluch hakim? Says the Gemara, Rav Kahana, just as Rav Kahana tells us in a minute, that when the pasuk says shalech tashalach hasaim, send away the mother bird, v'sabonim tikach lach, the offspring you take for yourself. Tikach lach tells you it has to be kosher. It has to be something suitable for your purposes, for your consumption, as opposed to if it's not suitable for you except for your dogs. There's no chiyuv of shluch hakim on that. Hachanami as well regarding our question with the non-kosher eggs. It's not suitable for a yid to use. Tikach lachav, v'lo k'lovecha. It's meant for you, not for your dog. So therefore you're exempt. Ve'echa itmad Rav Kahana. Where is Kahana's halacha said? Ahad Dasani in the following brayso. Aim treifa shayach chayiv b'shluach. Mother bird is a treifa bird. As long as it's a kosher type, you chayiv to do shluach. What if they're freichim, the chicks, they are treifas and not suitable for personal consumption? Patam shluach, there's no chiyuv of shluach. Why? How do we know this is so? Rav Kahana, the makra. Take the offspring for personal use, as opposed to l'kolvecha, to feed your dogs. Hence, if the offspring are treifa or non-kosher, you're exempt. But if the mother bird, if she's kosher, so that qualifies as tzipor, we don't care if she's a treifa. Ask the Gemara, why? I mean, we should really connect and compare the mother to the offspring. It's one package, right? V'lahakish, aim treifa lefreichem. Connect the mother treifa to the offspring. Just like offspring that are treifa are excluded, likewise the mother should be. Ma freichim treifa is our patam mishiluach. Af aim treifa, likewise the mother was a treifa. Nami, there as well patam mishiluach. There should be an exemption of shiluach hakim. Return Talmud base. Imkain. I'll prove to you that you can't make that hekesh. You can't make that connection. Because look, we already established that the offspring have to be of the kosher type, have to be healthy, have to be edible. If you're going to connect mother to offspring, then why does the pasuk have to say tzipor to exclude a mother bird which is not kosher? Well, it's already been excluded by connecting to the kids, which have to be kosher. And Cain, if that were so, that you make that connection, tzipor, the word tzipor, which is limited to the kosher type, lemuta if tummy to exclude a non-kosher mother bird. Lomali, what's the point of that pasuk? Apparently, mother and offspring are on different planes. So if the mother is a non-kosher type, you're patur. That's not tzipor. But if mother is merely a treifa of the kosher type, then that qualifies for shluch hakim. What do you mean, Vatani? We have a brayso. How could you say that if the offspring are treifa, you're exempted? Brisa seems to say that they're chayiv. Aim of a freichim that atreifa chayiv b'shiluchim. Abaye, the Brisa means hachik amar. The Brisa means like this: a freichim shimon treifa chayiv b'shiluch. You have normal chicks whose mother's a treifa. You're obligated, as we explained before. Treifa is not an exemption regarding their mother. Abaye Rav. Speaking of treifa, he hoishet yadeh lakan. Picture this: he stuck his hand to the nest with a knife, v'shachat miut simon, and shechted the offspring, but only a small portion of the simon, of the tubes. So the shchita is underway, awaiting completion. When he gets past the 50, mark point, he hasn't yet done it. At this very point, the birds are merely injured. Technically, it's a treifa. You have a hole in the esophagus. It's a treifa, right? Mahu. What's the status regarding chiyuv of shluch hakin? On the one hand, it's within his ability, within his reach to finish the shchita and render the chicks as edible. So you can't just take the mother. You have to send away the mother. It's chayiv shluch hakin. Or you can say, well, at the present moment, what's the status of this bird? It's technically a treifa. So now you can just take the mother bird, keep it, and then finish the shchita and take the kids as well. Now, what's the halach? Shall we say? Since he would just leave them alone, abandon it. It turns a treifa. So it's exempt from shluch haken at this point. But we require l'chav le'klovecha, has to be suitable, which it's not. So it's exempt. Or you can say, it's within his hand, within his ability, within his power, to complete the shchita process. So it does qualify. Tikach l'cha. We apply tikach l'cha. It is suitable. V'chayiv is obligated b'shilach take it with even unresolved. Back to the Mishnah where we learned that the chiyuv is only if the mother bird is resting on the offspring. What if there's something in between? Does that pose a barrier? Matlas, a material, mausha tachutz. Does that pose a chatzitza? And exempt you from shiluach. Another variation, knafayim, you have these loose feathers in between ma'u, she'achaytzu. Do they present a chatzitza? Beidim muzaros, eggs which cannot really hatch. Spoiled eggs, right? Sitting in between the mother. Ma, what's the halacha there? So it's sitting between the mother bird and the proper eggs. What if you have two layers of eggs, proper eggs? The mother is sitting on the top layer. You want to take the bottom. Ma, what's the status? Let's say you have only the mother bird is chayiv shloch. Let's say you have the father bird sitting directly on the eggs, and the mother bird is perched on top. Does he present a chatzitz? Or should you say, well, it's all one and the same family, and there's no real disconnect between the mother bird and the eggs. Ma will take it. We leave all these as unresolved. But Reb Zera. Here comes another question. Yoina al beitzi tassel ma. So both yoina and tassel are kosher birds, different types. So you have a pigeon resting on the beitzi and the eggs of a tassel of a different type of kosher bird. Ma, what happens now? Or in the reverse, tassel, you have a mother tassel bird, al beitziin and the eggs of a pigeon. Ma, amar abaye tashma. Let me try to prove this from the Mishnah. Tashma if tamei. We learned that a non-kosher bird, roibetz al beitzi if tar, perched on the kosher eggs, totally different type of bird. V'toy roibetz al beitzi if tamei, or the opposite. You have a kosher mother sitting on non-kosher eggs. Patam shiluach, you're exempt, because there's a non-kosher element involved. But let's infer from here. Suppose both mother and eggs were of the kosher types, but a different variety, different family. Ha-tar v'tar, the mother is one tar, and the eggs are tar of a different bird. It sounds like you're chayiv, despite not being this, its own mother. Says the Gemara, Dilma b'koyre. Maybe it's referring to a very specific bird, the koyre bird, which we're going to see in a minute. It's a very unique type of bird, which feels free to go tend to other birds' nests. So there it's something usual, something common, and it's considered a proper nest. But if it's just a pigeon with a tussle, where it's not the regular for them to share nests, perhaps in that case it doesn't really qualify, and there's no chi of shluch haken. Oh, that takes us to the kairei topic. Kairei zachar. Rav Eliezer machayev v'chachamim paitrin. So back to this kairei bird, which goes and rests on other birds' nests, other birds' eggs. Now, for the kairei female bird, it's a very usual, very common thing. But the kairei zachar, the male kairei, that's something unusual. Still, Rav Eliezer says, it's considered the eimrei vetzitz. It's considered like the mother sitting on the eggs, because we're going to see in a minute. It's based on a pasuk. The Torah qualifies it as a proper dagar, degira, like a proper process of resting on the eggs. Now, all agree if it's a female kairei, it's certainly considered eimrei vetzitz ala beitzim, because Rashi says minhage bekach. It's a very common, usual thing for the female kairei bird to do, even on the other, family's nest. So kairei zachar, Rav Eliezer machayev, he says you're chayev shluch haken. It's close enough to the real one. V'cham paitrin, they exempt it. I remember my time to Rav Eliezer. Why is Rav Eliezer obligated shluch haken by a male bird sitting on his neighbor's nest? Asya degira. We derive from Gzera Shava. Degira. How? We have the pasuk kairei dagar, the kairei bird, which is a dagar, which is sitting on eggs. We find elsewhere where the pasuk describes the very common, usual phenomenon of a mother resting on the eggs. It says ubaka v'dagra v'tzila. A regular bird who's dagra, who's sitting and hatching the eggs. So from there we learn that even a kairei, a male kairei, who's exhibiting similar behavior, is considered, Torah qualifies as a degira, as a proper resting on the eggs, and it's like the mother bird, and qualifies as shluch haken. And again, this is unique to the kairei type of bird, who commonly does this. At least more than a regular bird would do it, right? So the female kairei for sure. The kairei zachar, that's a chiddush, but by a regular bird who's just sharing nests, we said before, of course, that's different. Amar B'Elazar, machlekes b'kairei zachar. When do the Rabbanan exempt? That's when the kairei is a male. He has no business sitting on the other fellow's eggs. Al b'kairei nekeva, but by the female kairei, where it's very common for her to go share nests and to sit and warm the other fellow's eggs, all agree that's a regular, conventional degira, and of course it qualifies for shluch haken. Divrei kol chai, all agree, even the Rabbanan agree, it's obligated shluch haken. Well, pshita kairei zachar, of course. This inference is correct. The Mishnah speaks specifically about a male. That's the point of machlekes, but a female, all seem to agree is okay. Well, it's not so clear now. Perhaps I can, relearn the Mishnah differently. That really the Rabbanan afilu kairei nekeva patri, Rabbanan would exempt even by a female kairei. V'adaktani zachar, because after all, it's not her own eggs. V'adaktani zachar, the reason why the Mishnah highlights the male is to highlight Rabbi Eliezer shit, even by the male, who typically doesn't get involved in this business. But he qualifies the kairei zachar because sometimes he does, and that's learned from the pasuk. To highlight Rabbi Eliezer shita, that's what I would think. That's where we need this additional clarification that you should know the whole point of the discussion is only the male kairei, but all agree the female one qualifies even on the other bird's eggs. Furthermore, V'amar Elazar, another point in the Gemara is, some say Ikad Amri, the different version. V'amar Elazar, machlekes b'kairei zachar. Ava b'zachar da'amud divar kol pater. When does Rabbi Eliezer qualify the kairei? That's only the kairei zachar, right? When does he qualify the male bird? Only by this type of bird who at times warms his eggs or warms the other bird's eggs. Ava b'zachar da'amud by a regular male father bird who doesn't get involved in this business. All agree there's no chiv shluch haken. It sounds in the Gemara that the kairei zachar is chayiv b'shloach haken, whether it's his own or the other fellow's eggs. Okay, so in any case, only there Rabbi Lezer obligates, specifically by the kairei. Pshita, well, of course, kairei zachat tanan. Look at the Mishnah. It spells out only the kairei is up for discussion. Apparently, a regular bird doesn't have this potential. Well, it's not so simple. Perhaps I can argue and say Rabbi Lezer afilu zachat alma machayiv. Rabbi Lezer would consider the same by a regular zachar who happens to be sitting on an eggs. The reason why the Mishnah highlights the kairei is that even here, where it's more common than a regular bird, to highlight the Rabbanan shit, that even there they exempt, because after all, it's not the mother. Kamash Malon. That's why we need this clarification. That, in fact, this whole discussion is only by the kairei because of its uniqueness, but a regular bird, all agree, even Rabbi Lezer agrees, a male bird is exempt from shloach hakein. Tanya, we find the same in a brisa, zachat alma pater. A father bird is exempt from shloach hakein, but a kairei zachar, who occasionally does sit on the eggs, Rabbi Lezer machayev, v'chachamim pater. So bottom line, conceptually, shloach hakein applies to a mother bird. Right? Mother bird. But as opposed to a father bird who's exempt. When it comes to the kairei type, where the mother rests on others' eggs, and even the father bird feels free to. There we have a machlekes. So it comes out that by the kairei nekeva all agrees chayiv. Kairei zachar is a machlekes. Rabbi Lezer is based on a pasuk, the gira, where the Torah qualifies even this type of situation. Now, how close does the mother bird have to be to the nest? Doesn't need to be actual contact, or just hovering. So the pasuk, in its strict reading, says revetes al ha'efroichem, oy al ha'beitzim. Revetes means it's actually crouched, it's actually sitting on the material. Says the Mishnah, I suppose it's fluttering, it's hovering, mid-air. Do you have to wait for it to land? Well, it depends. If the wings of the mother are actually touching the offspring, even just a slight touch, that's close enough, it's one package. Shiluch hakein kicks in. But if there's no actual contact, it's too high for it's disconnected at this point, there's no chiv at this point. Don't think it has to be a pair of birds or eggs. Even if it's just one bird or egg, you're chayiv shenemar kan is mikol malkim. In any situation, even a single item. Now the pasuk describes the material in the nest as efroichim or beitzim. We learn from there like this. Suppose the chicks had already learned to fly. They learned the art of flying. They don't really need to sit there with the mother. Oy beitzim muzaris. On the other hand, you have spoiled eggs which are not able to hatch. There's no chiyuv. You compare the chicks to the eggs. Just like chicks are viable, right? They're alive, they're well. Likewise, the eggs have to be viable as opposed to spoiled eggs. As opposed to the muzaris. And now we flip around the comparison. We compare the chicks to the eggs as well. Just like the eggs are in a state where they're dependent on the mother to sit on them, to warn them, to develop them. Likewise, the efroichim are still in a state of unfinished state, undeveloped. They still need their mother's care. As opposed to they're already flying. So it's a pretty tricky timing issue. You have to catch them when they're still young and they still need their mother's, revitza, and that's when you do shloach hakein. Tanu Rabban. Pasuk says revetzes, right? It's crouched on the as opposed to the mother bird who's in a state of flying. Suppose it's flying, but it's close enough and it's making contact. Revetzes. Revetzes teaches us to include this as well. Now, how do you know from Revetzes that a fluttering bird is okay? My Talmud, how do you see that from there? Well, look, otherwise it would say Yesheves sitting, actually sitting. It doesn't say Yesheves, it says Revetzes. So even this sort of in-between state, fluttering but still touching is enough. So the touching sort of makes up for the fact that it's not sitting on them, connected, and considers it one. Here comes an interesting case which is going to take us to the end of the daf. Hoyse Yesheves ben Shnei Reiv De'ilan. Reiv De'ilan, like the branches of a tree. So you have a nest perched in the tree, and you have the mother bird not sitting on the actual nest, not really in a state of flying. It's perched, it's sitting stuck between two branches. So it's a stationary position, but far away from the nest, half a foot off the nest, directly above the nest. Is there a mitzvah or not? So Rav Rav says like this. We have to envision. Royim, we imagine, kol she'imtin tishamit. Suppose you would remove the branches, and the bird would now slip down. If it's directly above the nest, that nefelas aleim would land on the nest. It's considered close enough. It's one entity, and there's a chiyuv shiloch. But otherwise, suppose it's off to the side, pater, there's no chiyuv. Meisvei, so that's a chiddush. Right? Look, if it's sitting on the nest, actually sitting on it, chayiv. If it's fluttering but touching, we learn in the Mishnah it's chayiv. Here it's not sitting, it's not even touching. It's high above, but it's directly above it. It's in a stationary position because it's trapped between the branches and it's directly above. What Rabbi Rabbi chayiv. Maybe it comes a chash from a brisa, which seems to indicate otherwise. The brisa will address all kinds of scenarios. So we have the eggs on both sides of the mother bird who's sitting between them, touching them off to the side. There's no chiyuv, it's not on it. Al gabeim chayv shalech, but if it's sitting above them, then you're chayv. Hoysam efefe, suppose it's fluttering, it's hovering. Afilu knafeh noiges became patur mishalech. Even if it's touching, you're patur. The Gemara will ask in a minute from the Mishnah where it says that if it's fluttering and touching, it's chayv. The Gemara will say that the Bryce is speaking that it's fluttering and touching them off to the side. That's not enough. The Mishnah is talking that it's touching them from the top. Okay, we can get there in a minute. We started with Yesheves B'neim. Continued, Yesheves Al Gabeim. Let's compare the two things. Let's assume they're describing a similar circumstance. My love, let's assume Al Gabeim doing the B'neim. The second case, on them, is similar to by them. Ma B'neim, just like the case of between them. The Nagabu is talking that it's actually touching them, right? Sitting between them, it's touching them off to the side. Likewise, the second case where it's over them is touching. That seems to be a precondition. But in the case where it's trapped between the branches of a tree, high above them, where it's not touching, you're potter. You're potter. No. I'll compare two cases a bit differently, in a way which removes your question. Yeah. Sitting on the eggs is similar to the first case of between the eggs. In what way? Just like when the mother bird is sitting between the eggs, it's not touching the top surface, rather the side, right? So it doesn't really qualify as al. Ala Efreichem or Lebeitzim, as the pasuk says, not al. Likewise, the second case where it's on them, we're speaking that it's not touching the top surface. So they're both the same type of case. They're not touching the top. And V'hainu Reiv De'ilan. What does the Brisa say? Despite the fact that it's not touching, you're chayiv. Why? Because as we said, the Reiv De'ilan is chayiv because it's perched over it, and if you would release it, it would drop down. That's good enough. It's close enough. And the fact that it's, like we said, it's stationary, it's not flying, it's sitting in the tree, that compensates for the distance. It seems probable that this approach is correct, and in fact, the Brisa is obligating a case of Reiv De'ilan. This is not like Reiv De'ilan Pater, because if this case would be Pater, why wouldn't the Brisa express it? Instead of going to the case of Hoysamei Fefes, if the bird is fluttering, flying, even if it's touching the kind, it's Pater, why go to that case which is a lesser point, a lesser chiddush? Listen, instead, I should have highlighted a greater chiddush, even a Reiv De'ilan, where the bird is actually perched and in a stationary position, trapped between the branches. Even that's exempt. And certainly if it's flying, we're totally disconnected. So that seems to prove that we're right, that Reiv De'ilan is really chayiv. No, it says we're not necessarily so. Perhaps Reiv De'ilan is pater, And the reason why the Brisa wanted to mention Meifefes, it's Strichle, there was a point mentioning it, Afilu Knefe Noges Bekan, Potter, even though there's actually physical contact, it's flying, but it's actually touching. Potter Mashalech, you're Potter, so there's a point mentioning that, but perhaps Rev De'ilan is Potter as well. Okay, fine, so we haven't really concluded. Now, that point that we mentioned before, it seems to be a stira here, because in the Mishnah we say that if it's fluttering above the nest and it's actually making slight contact, that's enough. And here it says that that's not enough. Vanantnan, how can you say fluttering with with slight contact is not enough? In the Mishnah, it seems to say it is. Vanantnan mashay knefei noges bekan. If it's fluttering, but there's some contact, chayv shalech. Rav Yirmiyah, the Mishnah is talking that it's touching on the top. The Brisa is talking about touching to the side. And Rav Yirmiyah ki tani masnisa, the Brisa which exempts the fluttering with slight contact, but again, when it's touching from the side, that's not considered al. So at this point, we're not really conclusive on the question of Roiv De'ilan. Ikad Amri, there's a different version of this whole discussion. So again, Rav teaches us that the bird which is in stationary position, trapped between the branches directly above the nest, that qualifies. It's considered ala froichem ala beitzim. Ikad Amri leib Masaylei. So according to the next approach, we're actually trying to support this halacha from the Brisa, which says Hoysa Yesheves. Again, this whole Brisa, right, with all the cases, Hoysa Yesheves b'neim patam shalech. It's situated between the eggs. Your pot al gavim, if it's over them, kam shalech chayiv. Hoysa Meifefes, if it's fluttering. Afil knefei noges bekan patam shalech. And if there's slight contact, your potter. Okay, end of Brisa. My love, let's assume al gabein dumid b'neim, that the second case of the Brisa, three cases, right? Birds sitting between the eggs, on the eggs, or flying above them. So let's assume case number 2 is similar to case number 1. My love al gabein dumid b'neim is describing the same type of scenario. Ma b'neim deloy naga layu, just like the case where the bird is perched between the eggs, there's no contact to the top surface of the eggs, rather to the sides. Af al gabein deloy naga layu. Likewise, case 2, where the Brisa is talking where the bird is over them, there's no contact with the top of the eggs. So how could you have a bird which is in stationary position on the eggs but not touching them? Oh, it must be trapped in the branches right above. Vayni Rav De'ilan, exactly the Rav De'ilan case. And the Brisa says, you're chayiv, it's a riot to Rav, you're chayiv. No, al gabein dumid b'neim. Case number 2 is similar to case number 1. That ma b'nei denoga b'hu, just like in the case of b'nei, where the bird is seated between the eggs, there is contact off to the side, there's touching to the eggs. Denoga b'hu, afal gabein denoga b'hu, likewise. Case number 2, where it's on the eggs, it's touching on top of the eggs, there is contact. But if there's no contact at all, aval Rav De'ilan, the case of Rav De'ilan, was stuck in the branch directly above, potter, your potter, unlike Rav. Yachiv, that's true. The Tani Seifa says, why does the Brisa have to go to a case where it's fluttering? The Tani Seifa is my fefes. I feel knefei noges bekan potter. If it's fluttering, even if there's some slight contact, your potter. Return to the next page. Why not highlight even the case of Rav De'ilan, where it's in a stationary position? You would think perhaps it relates to the offspring more directly. Listen, you should mention that case and exempt that if it's true that it's exempt. Rav De'ilan, V'koshka, and certainly the case where it's fluttering, suspended midair, V'koshka meifefes. Well, meifefes is strictly, the Brisa prefers highlighting the case of meifefes and to exempt it, because you would think that knefei noges bekan, patam shalech, to tell you that even if there's touching, there is contact with the kan, you're still potter. And, certainly the case where it's suspended further above in the branches. Now comes the obvious question between the Brisa and the Mishnah. Vanatnan, here we say that if there's fluttering and there's contact, it's still potter. The Mishnah, it says, if it's hovering midair, but there's some sort of contact, that's a connector. As we explained a minute ago, the Brisa is speaking that there's contact off to the side, and that's why it's exempt as opposed to the Mishnah where there was fluttering but direct contact to the top, and that is a connector and triggers the mitzvah shluch hakin. Okay, so bottom line is, mother bird is sitting on the eggs, on the non-flying chicks, you're chayev. If it's sitting to the side, you're not chayev. If it's hovering mid-air but there's some contact to the top, you're chayev. Sitting between the branches directly above, that's Rabbi Damarab's Chiddush, that you're chayiv as well. Okay, back to the beginning of the daf. What type of bird is chayiv? Only a tzipah tahira. What about a non-kosher? A bird is potter, and if the offspring is non-kosher or even a treifa, it's lacking a tikach lacha, cannot be applied for personal use, and you're exempt from shluch hakin. The mother bird has to be actually sitting on the nest. What if there's some sort of chatzitza? We had all kinds of cases which we left unresolved. We had an interesting type of bird, a unique bird called a koire which feels free to visit others' nests and sit on the eggs. So if it's in a cave, it's certainly chayiv, because that's the regular minhag, Rashi says. But a zachar, that's a machlokes. All agree by a regular bird, a male does not qualify for shluch hakein. Okay, that's it for today. All the best to you, and it's Zachar.